Does time really heal all wounds? To start, I have a short video for you.
Dear Mom and Dad, I know that you are hurting me. I'm hurting too. I feel and feed off your tension, fear, and shock. Though I am young and cannot express verbally what is happening in our lives, I'm still feeling the impact. My heart is broken every time I have to be prepared. My sense of security is lost. Please don't assume that I was leaving. Please don't assume that my life will be exactly as it was, and that I will continue to feel the same love for both of you. I'm a human being just like you. My needs are just like yours. I need love, attention, nurturing, stability, consistency, compassion, understanding, patience, and curiosity. Fight every day for me. Sending me a message that we need each other is wonderful. I'm warning you that it is better to be right than wrong. Teach me how to be Someday, this initial shock will wear off. How you choose to parent me through this crisis will never wear off. I will either feel your sense of selflessness, support, and protection, or I'll have a scar on my heart with the message that means good things happen to good people. Hopefully, all child abuse.
So my thesis today is that although a good number of people in society are deluded in thinking that divorce only places short-term effects on children, the impact that it leaves is much more long-term for various reasons. We're going to start with our roadmap. During this presentation, we're going to learn about what changes a child's reaction to divorce, the immediate effects, the relationships and how they're impacted, how it changes their future, the opposing argument, and then my service learning project. I would like to again that you guys all using this link right here and taking a short survey.
I'll probably take about a minute, minute and a half. Alright.
So the first thing that we're going to focus on is child's reactions and how they're different with a few different factors. These are usually inevitable factors, nothing that a parent can control or nothing that changes with the child. And they are age, gender, and whether or not the child has a certain mental disorder. So for age, younger children often understand more or understand less about a divorce, and this leads to extreme confusion, frustration, and anger. They often place the blame on themselves just because they don't fully understand the concept of divorce. And older children have a harder time coping with it because they do understand the concept of divorce a lot better, so they understand what their future holds and all the life after divorce. So they have a harder time coping with it and kind of recognizing and realizing and trying to move forward from this stereotypes aside, males generally act out and lash out more due to their confusion, frustration, and anger. So they'll express their issues, where girls tend to more keep them to themselves, and this leads to more depression in girls going through a divorce because they don't express their feelings, they don't express how they feel, and they keep it all to themselves. So that's going to be another extreme difference between how they'll react. And lastly, mental disorders. There's a statistic that 80% of the teenagers who are in a psychiatric hospital and 60% of children who are in a psychiatric clinic result from divorced parents. So this increasing amount of awareness of mental disorders definitely correlates with the increasing amount of divorce in parents. So mental disorders have a huge impact on the relationship between how a child will react to divorce. Secondly, the immediate effects of divorce. First and foremost, the income drastically decreases by around half in families. The graph here shows that before a divorce, the average annual income is around $43,000. And just after a divorce, no time change, just the process itself of divorce, the average income becomes $25,000. So that's almost $20,000 of your income that you're losing just by the process of divorce alone. Older children, though, get this impact a lot because they often have to act as the lost parent. And this puts way too much emotional and physical expectations on them from the parents. They have to cater to the kids' needs, but they also have to try and assist their parent who is going through a difficult time. And this leaves them feeling inadequate because they'll never live up to the expectations that either they place on themselves or a parent non-purposely places on themselves as well. Another thing is the diminishing relationships. Immediately, parenting time changes, and instead of seeing your parents every single day, you see them 50% or 10% or 90%. And so this difference of time changes the relationship drastically because there's not a lot of time for you to see your parents. There's also an absent father role, and that's extremely popular. Oh, that's an awful word. That's an extremely popular situation where the father just gets up, leaves, and pays child support once a month. And that leads to various amounts of issues that we'll see later on in the presentation. Another immediate effect is coping. Again, people cope differently. Younger children often lash out because of confusion and anger. While older kids usually have a reflection period, and this is how they cope. They reflect upon it. They realize it's not my fault, I couldn't have done anything, and they try their best to move forward with this new situation that they're given. There are a few things that parents can try and do to minimize these effects, these immediate effects. And the two biggest ones are communication and the conflict that you show to your kids. Communication is so vital through this whole process, especially with children, letting them know that they are not the cause of the divorce or any other issues that they have, and giving them an opportunity or an outlet to talk to someone, whether it be yourself or a teacher or a counselor. Just talk to someone about how they feel and let them know that their opinions are valid even though this is a very stressful time. Another thing is the conflict shown to the kids. If you shelter your kids 100% from the divorce, they probably won't understand it as much. But if you show them, if you give them every court case conflict, if you express your emotions and your feelings to them in a way that negatively speaks about the other parent, this will make their recovery process so much longer and so much more difficult because they will be extremely confused, they'll be hurt, and they'll feel neglectful. Lastly, there's psychological effects that are immediate that cannot be changed no matter what you try and do, and these are ones such as obesity and sickness. Just the process of being divorced alone increases children's chances 54% of being overweight or obese. this can be due to, as we mentioned earlier, the economic issues that come with divorce where you don't have enough, as much income. Therefore, you can't afford those organic, healthier foods. Also, sickness is increased, and not only increased, but it takes a longer time for children to get healthier once they are sick. And this is because stress lowers your immune system, and so in this stressful period, their immune system lowers and they get sick easier, and it takes a longer time for them to recover. Another thing is relationships. Relationships between parents can either diminish or excel. This is due to the custody issues, the parenting time, but often there's a lost father. And this father is a very common issue that happens during a divorce. And there's a statistic here that 90% of homeless and runaway youths do not have a father. Their father has left. 71% of high school dropouts have no father, and 63% of youth suicides have no father. So it just shows you how vitally important the father role is to children and through their process of growing and maturing. Another thing that can change the relationship is the way that parents talk to the kids about the other parent. And most people would think that if you talked poorly about the other parent to your kid, it'll make you like them more and make them more distant from that parent. But it actually does the exact opposite. The worse you talk about your parent, the more distant your child gets from you. There's also trust issues between children. Once the divorce occurs, they are less likely to open up, and they don't, I don't know what I'm going to say here. They, blah, blah, blah. Friendships also change because friendships that have already been established can often be called into question because they have only seen the negative aspects of such a loving relationship. Sorry. In the future, okay, so the future for children of divorce doesn't look extremely bright. Economically, they could be taken into poverty due to the divorce and the decrease in income, and this can keep them in that cycle of poverty for the rest of their life. But along with that, a majority of kids are afraid to become married again, or if they do become married, they have such a significant chance of being divorced. Along with that, their stress levels are much higher, and academically they are not seen as successful. Along with that, there was a study from a Ivy League school about children of divorce who have defied all the statistics, such as the harder education, blah, 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 blah. And even after they are in college, and they did a follow-up study, and even after 10 years of them doing the previous study, they still said that they will never forget their parents and that they still have a lot of guilt and anger built up, so this also will drastically impact their future. Another thing is big events. Events such as graduations, weddings, even an event as big as Big Boards are usually supposed to be exciting and nervous at sometimes, but a celebration of what you've learned or what you've done, or an event in itself. And most children fear those big events because that means that both parents have to come, be in the same room, possibly communicate, but just get along for X amount of time. And that makes events that are supposed to be fun and exciting so nerve-wracking. And you'll see a situation in this next clip about that. I need to figure out how to turn the volume up higher, but it won't show.
You're newly big.
How much?
You're at 15 minutes.
Yeah.